Hey everyone, and welcome to the Anything Goes podcast, episode number 2 here. I am your host, Tim Gordon, also known as TDG Calamity. Uh, Today we're going to be talking about a lot of NBA news, going over some of the off-season moves, some of the draft picks, also some Hall of Fame news for people that are into the Hall of Fame. And we're going to go into all the NFL matchups over this past week. I know it's been 2 weeks since I've last posted or had an episode, but we're just going to go over this last week because if we were to do that, that would take up a lot of time. But I do have some storylines for each of those games in there that have happened over the last couple of weeks, so it'll pretty much get you caught up. You won't know what happened 2 weeks ago with the scores, but you'll know some of the news like firings and additions to teams and everything like that. And then we got some Spider-Man news again, which is, I'll take it. It's good. And some stuff on the Mandalorian, in case you guys haven't been watching that. Really good show. I highly recommend you watch it. It's really actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna say anything more. I'm just gonna because that's gonna be at the end, so I'm not gonna even go into that. So yeah, we're gonna start out with some NBA news. So the NBA, the actual start date for the next technically season will be December 11th. That'll be the start of preseason. I believe each team will get 2 preseason games, and then they'll pretty much just go right into the season because they just ended not too long ago. What, like 2 months ago, maybe? Um, so they're just gonna get right into their season. And now with the off season moves, there's a lot. So I'm pretty much doing like the major names in terms of like free agents getting signed and getting traded. Uh, Also with rookies getting drafted. I'm really only going to do like probably the top picks in the draft, to be completely honest, because to try and go over every pick would take a really long time. And I'm just going to go by team. I'm not even going to go by like player or anything like that. So to start off, we got the Atlanta Hawks. So some of their major moves, they signed Rajon Rondo from the Lakers. They signed, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I feel like it's pretty easy to say, but Bogdanovich from the Kings. And they also signed Chris Dunn from the Bulls. Now, the Atlanta Hawks, with those two signings right there, that means they have 3 point guards in Trae Young, Chris Dunn, and Rajon Rondo. I don't know how having 3 guards like that will work, but I will say I like those 2 signings for the Hawks because you have Young, who's a shooter. I mean, he can do more than that, but he's primarily a shooter. Then you have Rajon Rondo, who's definitely the facilitator. He likes to pass the ball and get everyone, everyone going. And then Chris Dunn is kind of, honestly, I feel like Chris Dunn's kind of, I want to say he's underrated, but it's because I think he's good at more than one thing. So like he's a pretty good shooter. He's a really good defender, I think, and he's also a pretty good facilitator. So like he kind of does everything, but I think it's because he's not outstanding at one thing. People kind of overlook him. I liked him in Chicago. I thought he was a really good point guard for them, and now he's on the Hawks working with Trae Young and Rajon Rondo. So I mean, maybe that'll make him become a better shooter with Trae Young and a better passer working with Rajon Rondo. Because I mean, Rajon Rondo is definitely the veteran on the team, but like he can still play a good amount of minutes. So like it's kind of hard. I don't see all the minutes really being allocated for those 3 guys. And then they also got Tony Snell from Detroit and Danilo Gallinari from OKC. They got those 2 guys in trades, which it adds some depth to their lineup. But those 2 aren't really difference makers, I guess. Gallinari's good. I like Gallinari, but he's obviously past his prime. He can still do a little bit with scoring, but in terms of defending or anything like that, I don't really see him doing a whole lot. I mean, I think he's probably going to come off the bench, I would think, but you never know. And then from there, we go to my Boston Celtics. They actually signed Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague, both free agents they signed. I really like both of those signings, to be honest. Tristan Thompson is probably my favorite signing because two of the things that Boston needed was rebounding and a big man down low to defend the paint. And you definitely got that with Tristan Thompson. I mean, Thompson's not an elite defender down there, but like definitely an upgrade from Cantor. And honestly, he's probably an upgrade. I mean, I know they didn't have Baines last year, but he's an upgrade from Baines too. And he's a pretty good offensive center. So I really like that signing. Jeff Teague, it was kind of interesting that he came up, but I do see where the Celtics kind of need him because they just lost Brad Wanamaker, which I know he's not, in Jeff Teague's league yet, but Wanamaker was still a good point guard for us, so we had a point guard spot open, and Jeff Teague is a really good player to fill that spot. And I just saw it was either yesterday or early today that Kemba Walker had to do some surgery on his knee, so he may miss the start of the season. He won't miss a whole lot. It's going to be like the first week or two maybe of the season, but Jeff Teague would be a perfect person to come in and fill in for him while he's out. And then Jeff Teague will just come in when Kemba Walker comes back, and he'll just be coming off the bench, which is, I mean, that's fine with me. To have Kemba Walker and Jeff Teague coming complimenting each other, I mean, that's fine with me. Plus, you got Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I mean, it's gonna be a good Celtics team. I mean, they lost Gordon Hayward, which sucks, but I mean, Celtics weren't going to give him that kind of money. He got a lot of money, but that's two teams later. So, and then Aaron Naismith and Peyton Pritchard, they drafted. Now those two guys, I like those two picks. It'll be interesting to see when they come up how they'll fit in with Tatum and Brown already being so young. Those two guys, though, I think will be good additions to the team. Maybe not right away, but give them a year or two learning from Tatum and Brown and Kemba and just all those guys. I mean, I think they'll be a really good addition. Now, the next team is the Brooklyn Nets, and really the only thing that they did was they signed Jeff Green in free agency. Jeff Green is obviously older now. He's in his mid-30s. I love Jeff Green. I loved him when he was on the Celtics. Thought he was a great player, but now he's gotten older. I mean, he can't really do as much as he used to. He's definitely still a really good rebounder, and he'll get you some points every now and then in the paint. But other than that, I don't really expect him to be. I think he's primarily there to be a rebounder because, I mean, obviously the Nets don't really have a whole lot of money anymore because they had to spend it all to get Durant and Irving there. But I mean, I think that's probably all they could afford to do. Now the next team is the Charlotte Hornets. Their two biggest things were the draft, and they got someone through a trade. Now the person that they got through a trade was Gordon Hayward, and they got him through a trade. There was a sign and trade. So pretty much Gordon Hayward signed with the Celtics, but then the Celtics agreed to trade him to Charlotte for, I don't even know what it was. I think there was a couple picks involved. But he signed for $30 million a year, I'm pretty sure. And I don't think he was. To me, I love Gordon Hayward too. I have his jersey, and I really liked Gordon Hayward. Unfortunately, it didn't work out in Boston just because of the injury, which I think really messed with him a little bit. I think he started to get back into his groove this year, but he's still not. I don't think he's worth $30 million a year. I don't. It's a lot of money to give to someone that's not really. You usually give $30 million to people that score 20 points a game, and he may be able to do that. And if he does that, then he's worth it. But he hasn't done it for the Celtics, so I don't see him really doing it for the Hornets. I hope he does. No one's rooting for him more than I am, but I just don't see it happening. And then their other biggest thing for the Hornets would be their draft, where they got wow, I really messed up spelling this guy's name. Vernon Carey Jr. and LaMelo Ball. They got the Ball brother. I think he's going to be a really good player. Ball is. I think both will actually be a really good player. LaMelo obviously is. He's a scorer. We'll see how he does defending, but I know he's known for his scoring. So we'll see how Charlotte handles that. And I think Charlotte will be on the come up this year. Honestly, they're a young team, and they got Terry Rozier at point guard. They got Gordon Hayward in there, and adding in Ball, which I don't know if Ball. I think Ball is more of like a. I think he's like a shooting guard, maybe small forward for his size. I don't know exactly what he'll play, but them having Gordon Hayward signing him, he's probably going to be starting at small forward. I don't see him starting at power forward like he did sometimes for the Celtics. And LaMelo, I think he's probably going to start out as a shooting guard. So I think Charlotte will be on the come up this year. And then we got the Cleveland Cavs. Now they only made two really good additions, I thought. Damian Dotson they signed in free agency from the Knicks. I think he's a really good point guard, so that helps them. They actually retained a couple guys too. One of them being a point guard too, but I see Damian Dotson coming off the bench and being a very productive point guard for them. And then JaVale McGee they actually got through a trade with the Lakers, and that JaVale McGee trade was pretty much to shore up where Tristan Thompson was. So I think this is going to be another rebuilding year for the Cavs. They do have Dotson now. He's a really young point guard. I think he'll be with them for a while. I think they'll really like him and kind of, I don't want to say build around him, but get pieces that are going to be like him, like young pieces so that they can rebuild. And then the Dallas Mavericks, their only two biggest things was they got two guys in trades. One of them being James Johnson and the other one being Josh Richardson. James Johnson is a veteran in the league. He's pretty much just a rebounder. Can shoot the ball pretty well. I mean, he's not gonna be lights out or anything, but I can see that happening. And Josh Richardson, they got from the 76ers. I think he'll be coming off the bench. Pretty good scorer. Not really a great defender, but he's still pretty young, so I guess jury's still out on him. And then we got Golden State, who I think actually had like one of the better off seasons. They had three things. The first one isn't going to be like a crazy deal like the player I'm going to say. You're going to be like, oh, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But it could matter. Is Brad Wanamaker. They signed him in free agency from the Celtics. Again, like I said earlier, Wanamaker was a pretty good point guard. He's still really young because they just drafted him like a year or two ago. So they got him playing behind Steph, who Steph is probably going to have to play a lot of minutes this year just because Klay Thompson went down again with a torn Achilles for the season. So that's going to hurt. But they also got Kelly Oubre Jr. in a trade, which Oubre will pretty much fill that void that Klay Thompson that he created, I guess. So Kelly Oubre Jr. obviously a really good scorer, so that will help Steph Curry. It'll help take the pressure off of him a little bit more. And then they didn't sign. They drafted James Wiseman with the second overall pick in the draft, which, if you think about it, if Golden State had Klay Thompson healthy right now, and they got Kelly Oubre Jr. and Brad Wanamaker, and then they also had the second overall pick in the draft, like that's crazy. And this is a championship team, and for them to have the second overall pick, that's even crazier. That just means they're gonna get younger and so much better because the second overall pick usually is a good pick unless, something crazy happens where they don't make it or anything. But I don't see him being a bust at all. So I think Golden State's in a really good position to get a championship potentially, even with Klay Thompson hurt for the year. And then we go to the Clippers. Their only thing is that they signed Serge Ibaka in free agency, which I think is a really good signing for them. They lost their center, Montrezl Harrell. We'll talk about him in a minute, but he also gets reunited with his former teammate Kawhi Leonard, and last time they were together they won a championship, so couldn't hurt, right? And then we go to the Lakers, who, I mean, they've made some good moves. They signed Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell in free agency, which that pretty much shores up their interior. Even if I know Anthony Davis technically declined his player option, so he's technically still a free agent. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he probably just wanted more money. But they'll have Davis, Harrell, Gasol. I mean, those are three really good centers and potentially power forwards. I mean, you could have. Well, here I'll say this too. They got Dennis Schroeder in a trade, and they also signed Wesley Matthews. So technically, they could do a Schroeder, Matthews, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Montrezl Harrell, Marc Gasol kind of package thing at center. So their starting five would be really good. I mean, they lost a couple of good pieces for them depth wise, like Rondo would still be a good piece for the Lakers, I think. But I mean, obviously he's gone now. Um, so the Lakers are definitely restocking up on some of their players to try and make a repeat run at a championship, which they definitely can still do with that lineup. And then we go to the Miami Heat. They made two signings that were impactful in my eye. One of them being Avery Bradley. They signed in free agency. I mean, that kind of shores up their defense a little bit. Obviously, he'd play behind like Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero kind of thing. And he's still a really good defender. I mean, he's never lost that, and he's getting up there in age, but he's kind of like, oh my God, I can't think of his name. He used to be on the Celtics. He was Tony Allen. There we go. He was a really good defender. I mean, he left the Celtics and went to Memphis, stayed in Memphis for a long time, and was a really good defender. I think he actually mentored Avery Bradley when Avery Bradley was drafted by the Celtics. So Bradley he's still got it defensively. So he just needs to work on his shot a little bit more. I mean, he's gotten a little older, obviously, so I don't know if his shot will really improve that much. But they signed him, and they also signed Maurice Harkless, who's a good scorer, pretty good defender, probably come off the bench. So they kind of shored up their defense a little bit. And then we go to the Milwaukee Bucks, who definitely retooled and tried to put a championship roster together. They still have Giannis, obviously. They signed Bobby Portis, DJ Augustine. Pretty good signings for them. And then they also got Drew Holiday in a trade, which is a really good point guard for them. I think they're going to be scary coming out of the East again. And I really think it's probably between the Celtics, the Bucks, and if I had to choose, honestly, I might say the Hawks. Nah, I'm going to go with Celtics, Bucks, Heat still. Those are the top three in my eyes for the East. And then we go to the Timberwolves, who they had the first overall pick with Anthony Edwards. Again, really good pick. I don't see anything wrong with that. And they traded for Ed Davis, who's just a rebounder, probably come off the bench for Karl Anthony Towns. And then Ricky Rubio would be a good addition to the Timberwolves. I mean, he was there before, and then he's been on a couple different teams since. But he's back in Minnesota. He's definitely a facilitator still, I think, and can shoot the ball pretty well still. So I think he's going to be a good addition for Minnesota. And then we go to the Pelicans. They signed Willie Hernan-Gomez, and they traded for Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams, so I think they definitely improved. Steven Adams and Hernan-Gomez are both rebounders and big men down low that'll get some rebounds for Zion and everything, so he's not doing everything. And then you got Eric Bledsoe, who's a good shooting guard. He's actually like a shooting guard, point guard, but I think primarily he plays shooting guard. So that's just more point scoring for the Pelicans and more rebounding for them without having to tire out Zion. And then you go to the Knicks. They've signed a lot of players, and they had the 8th overall pick, which they drafted Obi Toppin. I think another solid pick out of the draft for the Knicks. He's got a bigger body and can kind of get down low, even though he's a small forward. Yeah, he's a small forward. So I think it's going to be a really good pick for the Knicks. I hope he works out for them. Then they signed Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who's a good defender. Alec Burks, good three-point shooter. Nerlens Noel, good rebounder. Alfred Payton, they re-signed. And Austin Rivers, they signed as well. So, I mean, I think the Knicks actually have a pretty good roster this year. I don't think they're going to be, championship bound or anything like that, but I think they'll be pretty competitive in the East. Hopefully, if everything works out with them. Usually the Knicks have something weird that happens every year, and everyone's like, wow, what's going on with them? But I think they'll be pretty good. And we go to OKC. OKC made a lot of moves. A lot of trades, actually, obviously. I mean, they got rid of Chris Paul, and they got rid of Steven Adams. So those are the two biggest guys, and they traded them both away. So you hope they got something good for them. I think OKC's in a rebuild again, so we'll see. But they got Trevor Ariza, Danny Green, George Hill, Justin Jackson, all in trades. So, I mean, I think they're not going to be as good as they were last year. Last year there was kind of like a Cinderella story to them. Chris Paul was willing them to life, and I don't think they have that player, and they lost Steven Adams now, so I just don't see them being very competitive in the West. The Orlando Magic pretty much stayed with the roster they had, other than they lost a few pieces and replaced them, but I didn't think they were really that important to talk about. Really, the only thing that they have is they had the 15th overall pick, in which they drafted Cole Anthony, point guard. I think he'll be a really good fit with them. For some reason, I'm blanking on the Orlando Magic point guard right now. I don't know why. I can't think of his name. But I think Cole Anthony will play behind him for a few years, maybe like a year or two, depending on his contract status and everything, whatever. But as long as he's there, I think Cole Anthony will be his backup. Learn from him, and hopefully, when he comes into the fold, he'll still have Aaron Gordon there, who he's kind of gone down a little bit. Aaron Gordon has, but still a really good power forward. So I mean, you can't deny that. Then we go to the 76ers, who they made two pretty important moves. They signed Dwight Howard, who's a really good rebounder for them since they lost Al Horford, and they traded for Seth Curry, which obviously is more three-point shooting for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to not have to worry about. So 76ers will be up there again. I don't see them being very competitive, though. I can't take the 76ers seriously. Every year I cannot take them seriously, just because I know they've beaten the Celtics a few times, but not really important times that they beat the Celtics. I mean, Simmons just can't shoot. I don't know what it is. I mean, he improved last year, but like the year before that, it's really not hard to improve on that. And then Joel Embiid is either hurt or just doesn't show up sometimes, and it's I don't know. I don't take them very serious, but they got Dwight Howard, which is definitely an improvement. So we'll see where they are. To me, I have them 4th in the East, which again isn't bad, but I just don't see them being a contender yet. Then we go to the Phoenix Suns. Their biggest things was they had a 10th overall pick, in which they picked Jalen Smith, and they traded for Abdel Nader and Chris Paul. Chris Paul is definitely an upgrade from Ricky Rubio, and Jay Crowder, good defensive player. He'll hit the three every now and then. He'll probably come off the bench and be a good bench player for them. Phoenix definitely improved. I mean, you got Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. I mean, that's pretty good big three right there that they kind of have. And Ayton and Booker are both really young still, so they definitely have a lot to learn with Chris Paul coming to play with them. And then the next team is the Trailblazers. They signed Derrick Jones Jr. and Harry Giles III. They also traded for Robert Covington and Enes Kanter. So Trailblazers, they got scoring in Covington and Giles, and they got rebounding in Kanter and Derrick Jones Jr. So I think they're going to be a scary team out west. I don't really know where I'd rank them in the West, but they're a potential contender in my eyes. Like, when I say potential contender, it's I wouldn't be surprised if they did make it deep in the playoffs. Like, I'm talking like Western Conference Finals, maybe the finals. I wouldn't be very surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they got knocked out in the first or second round. So they're kind of like right there for me, kind of like the 76ers in a way, but I take them way more seriously than I do the 76ers. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because I'm a Celtics fan. I don't know. But then you got the Sacramento Kings. They had the 12th overall pick, and I actually mentioned that they had the 52nd overall pick too, but that was just because I really liked Kenyon Martin when he played. And to see his son being drafted now is crazy, and that's who they picked with their 52nd pick was Kenyon Martin Jr. So we'll see how he is with Sacramento. But they picked Tyrese Halliburton with the 12th pick, and they signed Hassan Whiteside, who I think is a really good signing for them. He'll be their interior guy, get some rebounds, score really well down low. So I think Sacramento definitely improved, even though they lost a few pieces. I still think they improved. Is that it for? Yeah, I guess it is. So now we're on to the NBA Hall of Fame. So they announced that the players will be inducted into the Hall of Fame in May of 2021. They didn't really give like an official date. They just said May 2021. And the three players that they have going in are Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. And I think there is no denying that all three of those guys deserve to get in. Yeah, I just think it's cool that they're inducting all three of them, and that we actually found out that it's going to be in May. It's a little bit of a delay, but I mean, whatever. I mean, as long as they get in. Excuse me. Woo. As long as they get in, I mean, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter when to me. And then now we get into the NFL. So obviously Thursday was Thanksgiving. We had technically there were supposed to be 3 games, but the third game got pushed all the way till Wednesday. So that game hasn't happened yet, and you guys know which game that is: Baltimore and Pittsburgh. The first game was actually I don't know if this is the first game. It's the first game I have listed, but Thursday, one of the games was Houston versus Detroit. Houston won 41-25. And right before, I think it was I don't know if it was before the game or not. I can't remember, but I know Detroit fired their coach Matt Patricia and their GM. So they either did, I want to say they did it before the game, but I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now. But regardless, they lost. They got beat pretty bad, 41-25, like I said. Deshaun Watson was 17 for 25, threw for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's slowly getting up there, I feel like, probably with the MVP debate, because Houston is not a very good team. And the last 2 games he's put together is crazy. I mean, he had a really good game against New England a couple weeks ago, and then he had a 4 touchdown, 300-yard game here against Detroit. That's nothing to, complain about. And then Will Fuller, he had 6 receptions for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're actually going to be without him now for 6 games because he actually tested positive for PEDs, not corona. He tested positive for PEDs. So he'll be suspended for 6 games. Brandon Cooks also had 5 receptions for 85 yards. Then we go to Detroit's side of the ball. Matthew Stafford, 28 for 42 for 295. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Adrian Peterson, 15 carries, 55 yards, 2 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson, 5 receptions, 89 yards. Mohamed Sanu, 4 for 32 and a touchdown. So nothing too crazy on the Detroit side other than Adrian Peterson still doing work against teams at his advanced age. So we go to the next Thursday night game, which was Washington versus Dallas, and this was a blowout. Washington won 41-16. Alex Smith was 19 for 26, 149 yards and a touchdown, and also threw an interception, which stinks, but whatever. They won 41-16, so whatever. Antonio Gibson, rookie running back for Washington, 20 carries, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's the only rookie to do that, or he's not the only. He's the first rookie to do that since Randy Moss did that, which is score 3 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin led the way for the Washington football team. That was close. 7 receptions, 92 yards. Logan Thomas had 4 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown for the Washington football team. Almost did it again. And then for Dallas, Andy Dalton, 25 for 35, 215, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Andy Dalton actually, he only missed 10 passes that were incomplete, threw for 215 yards, not bad, 1 touchdown. Kind of stinks. You want him to put up a little bit more than that, and he also had that interception, which kind of sucks. But, it's Andy Dalton. That's pretty good for Andy Dalton, I think. Ezekiel Elliott, 10 for 32. He needs to figure it out, or their offensive line needs to figure it out. Someone needs to figure it out because their run game is not working. Amari Cooper, 6 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. So really nothing to worry about with Amari Cooper. He's still performing at a high level every week. And then we go into the Sunday games. First one on here is Atlanta versus Las Vegas. This game was highly surprising to me in the fact that it was not competitive at all. And me saying that, you would think it'd be the other way around too, but Atlanta won 43-6. Yeah, that was a rough game. Derek Carr was 22 for 34. He threw 215 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. He also had a couple fumbles, which didn't help their cause. Josh Jacobs, 7 for 27 on the ground, and Hunter Renfrow led the way on wide receivers for 7 and 73 yards. So really no production at all from the Raiders. And then you have Atlanta with Matt Ryan, 22 for 39, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Calvin Ridley, 6 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And Ito Smith led the way for the Falcons on the ground because Todd Gurley did not play. 12 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. So, like I said, highly surprising to me. I would have thought it would be the other way around just because Atlanta hasn't been playing very well lately. And Vegas had been playing really well lately, so I thought it'd be the other way around. And for some reason, Atlanta blew them out of the water. I don't know what happened there. And then the next game we have here is Arizona versus New England. This game, probably one of the weirdest games I've watched, and that's coming from a Patriots fan. Which, I guess there really wasn't a whole lot of weird games that we've had. But this one was definitely weird. I was nervous about Arizona coming in. They're obviously a good team from the NFC West. They're battling for the division title with the Rams and Seahawks. And they just could not do it. They were running the ball really well. But in terms of passing, I don't know why Kyler Murray struggled. Maybe it was just because Bill Belichick and the defensive game plan was just so good. But I just don't see it. Hopkins was held to 5 receptions for 55 yards. That's not a Hopkins stat line that you want to hear. Kyler Murray was 23 for 34 with 170 yards and a pick. Didn't throw a touchdown. And then Kenyon Drake, like I said, their running game was working really well. Kenyon Drake was 22 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. So, and the Patriots didn't do anything. I'll read you their stats. Cam Newton was 9 for 18, 84 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Nothing crazy. Damian Harris led the way on the ground for the Patriots, 14 carries, 47 yards. James White also had 5 carries for 18 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. And Jacoby Myers led the way receiving for 5 receptions, 52 yards. So really nothing. I mean, it was both running backs. Both running backs literally had the only points in the game. I mean, Kenyon Drake had the 2 touchdowns. James White had the 2 touchdowns. So that's 14-14 right there. And then you add in a field goal for Arizona and 2 field goals in for New England. New England won 20-17 on a last-second field goal. Weirdest game ever. Cam Newton didn't throw for over 100. He only threw it 18 times. It's just a weird game, like I said. But I'm glad the New England Patriots won because now I think they're 2 games out of the wild card. I don't know. I'm torn on if I want them to make the playoffs or not. I want them to be in the playoffs, but at the same time, if they're not in the playoffs, they're probably not going to improve that much next year. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Speaking of their division, we got the Buffalo Bills against the Chargers. Buffalo won 27-17. This was shaping up to be a really good game, and then literally both teams could not hold on to the football. There was interceptions, there was fumbles, all in the last 2 minutes, and the Chargers were trying to make a comeback. And it was I kept watching it, and I was like, oh my god, they just cannot hold on to the ball. I think there was a fumble. I think Herbert threw an interception late, and then each time Buffalo got the ball, they fumbled and threw an interception. So went right back to the Chargers. It was so weird. There was a lot of weird games this week. But Justin Herbert was 31 for 52. First of all, you shouldn't be throwing the ball 52 times in a game. But 316 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Austin Eckler's first game back from injury. Really good game, at least through the air. He had 14 carries, 44 yards. Then he had 11 receptions for 85 yards, so he was very, very productive in the passing game. Pretty good in the run game, but you would like to see him have a touchdown or a little bit more yardage, I guess. And then Josh Kelly was their other running back. He had 7 carries, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Keenan Allen had 4 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. And Hunter Henry had 7 receptions for 67 yards. So really nothing crazy from them. Buffalo's side, you had Josh Allen, 18 for 24, 157 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He also had 9 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown. So doing it both ways for Josh Allen. Devin Singletary led the way, rushing 11 carries, 82 yards. And then Gabriel Davis for the Buffalo Bills had 3 receptions, 79 yards, and a touchdown. So kind of surprising you'd have him in there instead of Stephon Diggs, but next game is the Giants versus the Bengals. Giants won 19-17. Daniel Jones was 16 for 27, 213 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He also got hurt, though, with what looked like a really bad hamstring injury. To me, it looked like he tore it. He literally did something to it, came off, then came back on their next drive, and then he tried to throw, and he couldn't put weight down on his back foot. So when he threw it, I don't know if he completed the pass or not, but I know when he threw it, he had to come up off his leg, and he was holding his hamstring, and that's something you don't want to see. I think he probably tore it, so he's probably going to be out for a little while, maybe the rest of the season. I don't know. Wayne Gallman led the way for the Giants on the ground, 24 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Good game for him. That is rushing the ball a lot, though, with him, 24 carries. Evan Ingram had 6 receptions, 129 yards. Crazy game for him, which made me happy. I have him in fantasy on at least one of my teams. It might be 2. He helped me out a lot. Then Brandon Allen for the Bengals was 17 for 29, 136 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Pretty good game from him, despite the interception and the loss. But, it was a pretty good game. Giovanni Bernard led the way on the ground, 8 carries, 32 yards, and then T. Higgins had 5 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. It's really nothing other than the Daniel Jones injury that really needs to, in terms of storylines or anything. And then we go to Tennessee versus Indianapolis. Tennessee won 45-26, and they actually claimed first place in their division because of that win. Ryan Tannehill was 13 for 22, 221 yards and a touchdown. And Derrick Henry, 27 carries, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's a beast, that's all I can say. A.J. Brown is also a beast. 4 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Phillip Rivers, 24 for 42, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jacoby Brissett pretty much came in to run the ball. 4 carries, 3 yards, 2 touchdowns. T.Y. Hilton, 4 for 81 and a touchdown. And Trey Burton, 3 for 42 and a touchdown. Now, Indianapolis did have a lot of injuries, which is very unfortunate because this game was really important to them to get first place over Tennessee. They can still obviously claim first place with a couple weeks left, and them only being 1 game out, I think they are. So I guess it's okay, but at the same time, you want to beat your division rival and take first place away from them. But when you're missing a lot of people, especially people on defense that can stop the run, Derrick Henry is going to run the ball down your throat. And he did. 178 yards and 3 touchdowns, like I said. Crazy game for him. He is possibly in my MVP debate because without him, Tennessee wouldn't be nearly as good as they are, in my opinion. Next game is Carolina versus Minnesota. This game came down... Wow, my nose is sounding weird right there. This game came down to a missed field goal at the end by Carolina. They lost 28-27, unfortunately. Teddy Bridgewater, 19 for 36, 267 yards, touchdown and a pick. Mike Davis, 15 carries, 55 yards for the injured Christian McCaffrey he was in for. Robbie Anderson, 4 receptions, 94 yards and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins actually had a really good day. 34 for 45, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. So really good game from Kirk Cousins. Didn't turn the ball over, and was really efficient in the passing game. Dalvin Cook, 18 for 61. He did come out for a little bit because he was injured, but he came back in, and they said nothing about his injury, so he must be good to go, I guess. Looked like an ankle injury. Justin Jefferson, crazy rookie, proved a lot in this game that he can be a number 1 wide receiver with Adam Thielen out. 7 receptions, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was 70 yards, too, by the way, in case you couldn't tell, because I said that right as I banged the desk. So really good game all around, really, for Minnesota. You'd like to see them win by more than 1 point, and not because of a missed field goal, but it is what it is. They'll take the win, I guess. Next game is Miami versus New York Jets. Miami won 20-3. They actually started Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback over Tua because Tua hurt his thumb in practice, I believe. Fitzpatrick was 24 for 39, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Parker had a crazy game, 8 receptions, 119 yards. Mike Gesicki also had 2 receptions, 35 yards, and a touchdown. For the Jets, Sam Darnold, 16 for 27, 197 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Obviously not something you want to see from Darnold. Frank Gore, 18 for 74, so pretty good for him on the ground. And Rashard Perryman, 4 receptions, 79 yards for the Jets. So really nothing to talk about here other than Tua injury and Miami beating the Jets. Next game is Cleveland versus Jacksonville. Cleveland won 27-25. Baker Mayfield, 19 for 29, 258 and 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, 19 for 144 yards and a touchdown. So it's good to have him back and healthy, along with Baker Mayfield not turning the ball over. Jarvis Landry, 8 receptions, 143 yards and a touchdown. For some reason, the Browns play better without Odell Beckham Jr. I will never understand that. And Mike Glennon for the Jacksonville Jaguars, 20 for 35, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good game from him. He's usually a backup, but he's playing because of injuries and stuff now. But didn't turn the ball over, played pretty well. James Robinson led the way on the ground, 22 carries, 128 yards, and a touchdown. Really good showing from the rookie. And their leading receiver was Colin Johnson, 4 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. So obviously you want more household names being on there, but DJ Chark Jr. was hurt, so they didn't have him, so Colin Johnson had to kind of step up here. And he did, in my opinion, but they ended up with the loss, unfortunately. We have New Orleans versus Denver as the next game. Denver, now this is an interesting situation. For anyone that hasn't heard this. Denver, they had one of their quarterbacks test positive for coronavirus. They found out that their 2 other quarterbacks came in close contact with him and didn't wear their masks. So all 3 of their quarterbacks had to not play and isolate for however many days, 5 days. I think it is if you're a close contact, and then however long if you test positive. So they were without a quarterback. So they had to promote their practice squad wide receiver, Kendall Hinton, to play quarterback, because he had played quarterback in like college or high school or something. He only had 9 pass attempts anyways in this game. New Orleans won 31-3. I know, shocker. Drew Brees is still hurt. Taysom Hill was the quarterback for the Saints. He was 9 for 16, 78 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, but he also had 10 carries, 44 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Latavius Murray had a crazy game, 19 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara also added 11 carries, 54 yards, and Michael Thomas had 4 receptions for 50 yards. Obviously, you want to see a little bit more production from Kamara and Thomas, but they got the win, so it didn't matter. Kendall Hinton, like I said, was 1 for 9, 13 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Again, you weren't expecting much from him, but good for him for going out there and being quarterback for his team for a day, and at least having the courage to go out there and take some hits at quarterback and attempt to play well. I mean, it's a tough situation, so you can't really blame him at all. Royce Freeman had 8 carries for 50 yards. Sorry, my handwriting was really weird right there. 8 carries, 50 yards. So obviously you're not going to run the ball a whole lot. They did some like wildcat formations and jet sweeps and all these weird stuff to try and get the Saints off guard, but it didn't really work. Next game we have is San Francisco versus the Rams. San Francisco won 23-20. And this is the first game that San Francisco has had Richard Sherman, Raheem Mostert, and Deebo Samuel all back and healthy this year. And the first game back, they actually win 23-20. So, and Sherman actually had an interception too. And Samuel had a really good game, and Mostert actually had a really good game. So, really good for the 49ers to see everyone get back and healthy. Nick Mullins was 27 for 35, 252 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. Raheem Mostert, 16 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel, as I said, 11 receptions, 133 yards. It's good to see them back. Nick Mullins, you want to see a little bit more from since he's replacing Jimmy Garoppolo because he's hurt. Then you got Jared Goff, 19 for 31, 198 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Unfortunate for him. Cam Akers was the leading running back for them, 9 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown, so good showing from him. And Robert Woods was the leading wide receiver, 7 receptions, 80 yards. Now we get into how many games we got left here? 1, 2, 3. Got 3 games left, and then we get some movie news and TV news. So this next game is Kansas City versus Tampa Bay. Really, high-profile game here. Kansas City ended up winning 27-24. Now that score sounds misleading, but Kansas City really stomped Tampa Bay, honestly. And let me just read you their stat lines first. Patrick Mahomes, 37 for 49. Okay, really good. 462 yards, crazy. 3 touchdowns, no picks. Crazy, but it's Patrick Mahomes, so kind of expect something like that. Tyreek Hill, 13 receptions, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns. What? And then Travis Kelce led the way after Tyreek Hill in receiving 8 receptions, 82 yards. So the fact that Tyreek Hill had 30 catches for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns is mind-blowing to me. Literally, I watched highlights on ESPN. I watched the game, and I watched experts break all this stuff down on ESPN all the time. And literally, what makes no sense to me is that they left Tyreek Hill in single coverage the entire game, or primarily the entire game. And that's when he went nuts with 13 receptions, 269 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like, why would you do that? That to me makes no sense at all. And Travis Kelce still had a really good game, but didn't score a touchdown. Just makes no sense to me why you would do that. Tom Brady, 27 for 41, 345 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. So not a bad game from him other than the 2 picks. I mean, you don't want to see him do that, which he doesn't usually do, but for some reason this year he's throwing picks all over the place. But one of them was off a deflection off his lineman's helmet. So, and you can't really blame him for that because I saw the play that he did that, and Mike Evans was supposed to do something completely different. So he was trying to throw it to Mike Evans, but because Mike Evans did the wrong route, it forced Brady to throw it. This is going to sound weird, but it forced him to throw it into his lineman's helmet, which his lineman shouldn't have been there. First of all, granted he should have seen that, but if you're expecting a receiver to be there and you're not looking at the lineman technically, it's hard to see that. And when he threw it, it went off his helmet and in the air, and Kansas City came out with the ball. So I mean, his other interception was just him overthrowing somebody. Ronald Jones had 9 carries for 66 yards. He also had 1 reception for 37 yards in which he hurdled a defender and scored. And then Rob Gronkowski, 6 receptions, 106 yards. Chris Godwin, 8 receptions, 97 yards. And Mike Evans, 3 receptions, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Tampa Bay played pretty well, but I will say they were down 14 or 15, or 14 or I guess it was 17 points when they started to make their comeback, and that's what made it 27-24. And Patrick Mahomes made another play at the end of the game that really sealed the game, where it was 3rd down, and if they didn't convert the first down, Tampa Bay had a chance to come back and win. And he ended up passing the ball to Tyreek Hill, who was open for the first down, and that was the game. So it was still a good game to watch, but Tyreek Hill being single covered is crazy. Next game is Chicago versus Green Bay. Green Bay won 41-25. Really put it to the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky was the starting quarterback because Nick Foles was hurt. He was 26 for 46, 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not a bad game for him other than 2 picks. I mean, he's going to throw the ball to the other team sometimes. I mean, it's going to happen with Mitchell Trubisky. But I take that as a pretty good game, even though he threw the ball 46 times. Dave Montgomery had a good game. 11 carries, 103 yards, 5 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Good game for him. Allen Robinson had 8 receptions, 74 yards for 2 touchdowns. Really good game for him. Aaron Rodgers, 21 for 29, 211 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Aaron Jones was 17 for 90 yards. Jamal Williams was 17 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And then Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers, them being Tanyan, Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, and Mercedes Lewis. And Tanyan was 5 for 67 in that touchdown. Devontae Adams was 6 for 61 in a touchdown. Lazard was 4 for 23 in a touchdown. And Mercedes Lewis was 2 for 16 in a touchdown. So Aaron Rodgers is really throwing the ball everywhere and making his case for MVP. Pretty much my only takeaways from this game. And then we go to Monday Night Football, which was just last night. Seattle versus Philly. Seattle won 23-17. Russell Wilson was 22 for 31, 230, and a touchdown. Chris Carson was 8 for 41 and a touchdown. Yeah, I think it was his first game back, so pretty good game for him. DK Metcalf, 10 for 177. Crazy game for him. Carson Wentz, 25 for 45, 215, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Honestly, not too bad for Carson Wentz. I know that pick that made him have 15 on the year, which is the league leading amount of interceptions, which sucks for him because he was so good a couple years ago. Um, Miles Sanders has 6 carries for 15 yards. Obviously, you want to see more from him. Dallas Goedert led the way receiving for the Eagles, 7 receptions, 75 yards and a touchdown. So pretty good game from him. Uh, Takeaways from that game. I mean, Russell Wilson's still trying to compete for MVP, even though the last few games he's thrown the ball over, turned the ball over a lot. And he wasn't doing that at the beginning of the year, and he was like the clear-cut midseason MVP until he started doing that stuff. And then the game that got moved to Wednesday was obviously Baltimore versus Pittsburgh, which hopefully they play tomorrow, and everything's all good to go. So that's it for football. All right, so going into Spider-Man 3, it looks like Doctor Octopus is rumored to be in it, the character, anyways. And it actually looks like the actor that played him in Spider-Man 2, the one with Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, his name is Alfred Molina. Looks like he will play him again. So we already know that Shock is going to be in it from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And it's rumored that all 3 Spider-Mans are going to be in it, including Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland are all going to be in it. So it would be believable that someone from Spider-Man 2 is going to be in it, as well as a bad guy from The Amazing Spider-Man. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a really good movie. So and hopefully that's actually true, because that would be amazing to see. Then we go into The Mandalorian. Now, The Mandalorian is one of my favorite shows. I'm a big Star Wars fan, as you guys can probably see. And they had Chapter 12 and Chapter 13 come out over the last couple weeks. Chapter 12 was good. I don't really want to give too much away in case anyone hasn't seen it. But if you know who Snoke is from the movies, if you pay close attention, there's a scene. This is the only thing I'm going to say about it. There's a scene where it looks like someone's been doing experiments on people, and if you listen closely, you can kind of hear his theme song in the background. So I don't know if they're hinting at he's one of the experiments or what, but that was an interesting theory I saw. Then if you go to the next episode, which is Chapter 13, I'm going to say her name. Please don't make fun of me if I butcher it, because I'm a fan of Star Wars, but I haven't seen something that she's in, and I know she's a big character, and that's going to sound probably pretty bad, especially me saying I'm a Star Wars fan and I haven't seen something that this character's in. But Ahsoka Tano, I hope I said that right. Her character is the first episode where she's been in it. She's played by Rosario Dawson, who I think is a really good actress. I thought it was an outstanding episode. It was one of the highest rated ones, actually, on Rotten Tomatoes. And a lot of action, actually, in it. And I thought it was really well played out from what I've seen. I've seen clips of her character through like Twitter videos and stuff like that, and from what I've seen, looked pretty. I want to say genuine to the character, and I think she's going to play that part well. We'll see if she's going to be in future episodes or not. And we actually learned the child's real name in this episode as well. So that was kind of cool to know. And also, there's rumors of Mace Windu possibly appearing. Now, they're not obviously confirmed. They're rumors, obviously, so don't necessarily believe them. I thought it was an interesting theory. Someone brought up the theory of Mace Windu actually being alive, and that he is the Jedi that everyone's talking about in this season of Mandalorian. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I don't see that happening just because Samuel L. Jackson would have to come back and play that role, and I think he's going to want a lot of money, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that. But you never know. I mean, the director of the show, John, oh my God, I'm going to say his name wrong too. I want to say like Favreau or something like that. He was in the Avengers and Iron Man and stuff with Samuel L. Jackson, so maybe he'll just come on and be. Who knows? I don't know. I thought it was a cool theory though that Mace Windu actually survived you know, his death, even though I mean it didn't really show him die. But who knows? I thought it was a good theory to kind of put out there. I don't see it happening, but who knows? But yeah, I think that's about it. So we covered Spider-Man, football, basketball. Oh yeah, video game stuff. I mean, everyone knows PlayStation 5s are hard to come by. So are Xboxes. Xboxes have been a little bit easier to come by. Um, I still don't have PlayStation 5, and I've been trying to get one forever. So kind of disappointed there. I don't know what they did this year with the supply. They saying it's one of the most highly demanded things, or the highest demanded one ever, and all sort of stuff. I feel like it's highly demanded every time they come out with a new console, and I've always the only console I haven't had is the PlayStation 3. That's the only one, and I don't know why that was. I think it was just because I honestly I don't know why it was. I've had PlayStations, I've had PlayStation 2s, I have PlayStation 4. I wanted a PlayStation 5. I've had the Xbox, like the original Xbox. I've had the 360. I've had the One. I haven't had like the One S or the One X just because I didn't feel the need to upgrade to that. I would like to, um, but every time I've gone to either pre-order or just buy one of the consoles. I've been able to get it. This is the one time I haven't been able to get it, and it's also the one time that they've they sold out of pre-orders in the first hour. Which how you sell out of pre-orders, I don't know. That kind of doesn't really make sense to me. But whatever. But even in the first hour, like if you know that there's that much demand for it, you should know that when you launch, you should have a certain amount, so that way everyone can get access to it. Um, because I went, so let's see, that came out on what, the 12th, I think, and then like all the stores they're having you like all the stores only had the pre-orders when it came out, so that to me right away was like a red flag that like something was going to be off this year. And you can only buy it online, which all the places were crashing. Um, More specifically, Walmart. Walmart, they only did it at like noon, 3, 6, and 9, and who knows even know how many they had. Probably 2, because they give every store 2, so they probably had 2 at every 3 hour segment. Um, and I was able to get the PlayStation 5 into my cart, and then the cart froze, and then by the time it loaded, it was like, sorry, we don't have any in stock. Good job. Anyway, I don't really blame Walmart for that, honestly. I blame Sony for all this stuff. I mean, how do you not meet the demand of this? It makes no sense to me. But I tried to go Black Friday shopping because my GameStop here is really small, so I wouldn't think that a whole lot of people would know about it, honestly. So I went at 11:30 on Thanksgiving night. I went to my GameStop thinking, no one's probably gonna be in line yet. Like they open at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like I'm hoping to just kind of go there, and if no one's there, I'll sleep in my truck for a couple hours or wake up every hour just to see if anyone's in line. If anyone's in line, I can just go right in, get in line, and I'll sit out there for 5 hours or 6 hours or whatever. But when I got there, there was already 4 people in line before 11:30. Like they had lawn chairs, they had their cars pulled right up to the store, like it was ridiculous. And I found out the store only had 2. And I read somewhere that all GameStops were gonna have at least 2, but the most that they'd have would be 4. And all the ones in my state only had 2. And I guarantee you that there was already 2 people in line. There was more people that got into that line at that GameStop, and I was like, I didn't say anything, but I was like, you guys realize there are only 2 of them, and there's like 7 people in line. So like, what are you gonna get? I mean, I can understand if you're gonna get an Xbox, I guess, but I don't know. This whole supply and demand thing doesn't really make much sense to me this year. Like I said, every year I've wanted to get a console, I've got them on launch day or pre-order them, and this year I wasn't able to do that because supposedly demand was too much. I still don't buy the demand was too much. And even if it was too much, you should have known that from your pre-order days. If you pre-ordered and you sold out within an hour, you probably should be like, damn, like we're gonna sell these things like crazy. So we need to make a shit ton and make sure that they're available to people. Because now it's been out for, if it was the 12th, which I can't remember exactly what the date was when it came out. If it's the 12th, it's been a few weeks now, and a lot of people still don't have them. So like, when are you making more that we couldn't have had them earlier? Like I don't know. It's a weird situation, and I know this year has put, maybe they couldn't supply as much because of Corona. I mean, maybe their factories or whatever don't have as many people working. I mean, I guess I can understand that, but at the same time, they should know this stuff. They should know their market and know that people haven't been working a whole lot lately. So I mean, video games have probably become more popular over the past year, anyways. So more people are probably going to buy them anyways. I don't know. Whatever. I don't work for Sony. I don't do any of that stuff, but that's just my opinion on it. That's really the only video game news I can think of. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. Like I said, I'm going to try and do one every week, but my work situation has been pretty hectic lately, especially if you've been keeping up with me on Twitter. You kind of know somewhat of the ordeal. I'm not going to do that stuff on this video, but if anything changes with that, I'll let you guys know on Twitter. Again, be sure to follow me at TDG Calamity on Twitter and on YouTube, where hopefully you guys found this video. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.